working virtually, it was a lot of teleconferences, and it was audio only, and you couldn't see the person. If they hadn't met you before, they really couldn't see how you were, understand how you worked, could never read your body language, for example. So the introduction of video conferencing really was a game changer for me. And I became somebody who pushed that quite hard, insisting with colleagues that they switch their camera on and we could really see each other. I found that particularly important when I was working with senior stakeholders in change situations. Alison, I can see you're about to say something. I could see it. I could see you take the breath. So, Alison, what's been your experience working with senior stakeholders using technologies like this?
I think it's been extremely powerful, more so than you might imagine if you're not accustomed to virtual working. I think the video has made such a difference, and it's actually easier to make a relationship with someone if you speak to them on a regular basis by video, and then when you do actually have the funding to travel and actually meet them in their office, you feel like you already know them. And I think that's a really important point, whether it's a senior leader or a member of your team. You just get that connection which you don't get by telephone. That's the power of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I know when we were chatting just informally before, when we and Knut, you were even having a discussion, have you ever met in person? And you weren't even completely sure. But I know that you maybe you talk a little bit about your relationship, because I know you've worked together on a few things over the years.
Yeah, indeed, Jennifer. Maybe I'll start first, Knut, and then you can add on. So Knut and me, I think we work between the year 2014 to 2015, so around that 2 years. So we spoke almost every week over calls, video calls like this. So I know how Knut looks, and as I was mentioning earlier in the call, Jennifer, I thought he even looked younger than, a few years before. So that is a good thing, good sign. But yeah, I mean, we spoke so often, and I probably remembered meeting him once, but he said he didn't remember meeting me, so I'm not sure now.
Thank you for that one, Hui. That was nice. One of the things I experienced when we started with virtual working, and certainly the video thing is absolutely the most important thing. You do not connect the same way just via a phone line. But what I wanted to say is that I think it's quite common when people start in this virtual working mode, they feel a lack of the social interaction and so on. And yes, to some extent you lose that. But what we done, we set up virtual coffee corners or water coolers, which we had running the whole day. So people jumped in, jumped out again. So they did something on their day-to-day task. And then if they wanted a little coffee break and chat with colleagues, they jumped into these virtual coffee corners and then chatted with people who was in that. So you jump in and out all day long, and you can still see people on video. You speak about it. Is almost feels like you are seeing and feeling people. So I found that quite powerful, and people had a really super response to it. We used it all day long. That's one thing I thought was quite.
That is actually a really great thing. It reminds me of when I worked in a major international oil company which had offices across the globe, and they actually had video cameras and connections at the coffee machine. So you could go to the physical coffee machine and meet your local colleagues. You could also wait for one of your chums in the Netherlands or even in Houston. And that is a really powerful thing that other organisations, potential clients of ours, might be interested in trying.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. And I think, the current situation does make people think about, well, how can we keep social interactions up during a period where people might be homebound? And it's important to indeed to remember the examples you've given are great ones for it, that working virtually isn't only about how do you become effective in meetings, how do you share screens, how do you use collaboration tools, but it's also how do you keep the human contact up. I mean, we're social animals, and even the most introverted person wants to have a coffee with somebody now and again and connect that way. So I've also used virtual coffees that way. The other kind of thing I've done is a kind of beginning of the day connect. So just 10-15 minutes connecting everybody in, start of the working day, how's it going, how are you feeling? And I've done that also in a staggered way, working across time zones. So I would have my Asia check-in, my Europe-Africa check-in, and my Americas check-in with the team, just to kind of say, hey, what's up, what's happening in your life? The kind of things you would do if you were walking into the office first thing in the morning, and you might sort of say hi to people as you were taking your coat off and getting your computer switched on. So that, you know, doing those same kind of things. So certainly as a manager in those situations, I'm looking at all the ways I can recreate the kind of activities I would have done if I were seeing people face to face, and to generate the same level of interaction, because through that interaction, that's how you build trust with colleagues and how you get to know them on a personal level. And just because you're working remotely, you don't want to remove that element of how you actually work and function as people.